In Chapter 16, we're going to be covering roughly the same time period as we did in Chapters 14 and 15. That is, the 35 to 40 years following the Civil War and up to the turn of the century. In Chapter 16, we're going to focus on the industrialization of the United States. And in this sense, no city was growing faster, and few cities were more industrially friendly than Chicago, Illinois. So we'll be visiting two spots there. But the things to look for in this chapter are, number one, America's rise to industrial dominance, and that means in the whole world. Number two, the clash between ownership and labor, and then the rise of labor unions as a result. And number three, the question of the role of government in the economy.
It's Labor Day weekend. I'm about the most appropriate place that I can think of. This is the Haymarket Martyrs Memorial at Waldheim Forest Home Cemetery in Forest Park, Illinois. This spot marks the resting place of 5 labor leaders executed in 1886 in Chicago for demanding things like fair wages, decent working hours, and better working conditions.
Following the Haymarket riot, 8 men were arrested and charged with murder. 5 of them, the names listed here on the plinth of this monument, were executed. The other 3 received life imprisonment. In 1893, the governor of Illinois pardoned all of the men, the 5 obviously posthumously, and said that the trial had been a miscarriage of justice. Even the prosecutors admitted no one knew who threw the bomb that touched off the riot. Even though the Haymarket affair left many Americans doubtful about the loyalty and trustworthiness of most labor, not a decade passed before Chicago once again became the focal point of union activity, this time on the south side of town.
The industrial history of Chicago has a lot of famous names. McCormick, Swift, Armour, but probably none more famous than George Pullman. I'm here at the Hotel Florence in Pullman, Illinois. In 1880, Pullman built an entire town to support his factory, which manufactured famous train cars. Pullman ran the entire operation, from housing to sanitation, the hotel, the church, the bank, the market, everything, and built some of the most famous train cars and controlled a society like no place else on earth at the time.
Pullman believed that a pleasant community would result in pleasant workers who were also profitable. By all accounts, he built a model city. This attention to detail is most obvious in the Hotel Florence. Pullman also believed, though, that the entire town should turn a profit, and this included everything, including the local church.
This is what's left of the Pullman factory that opened up in 1880 here in Pullman, Illinois, just on the south side of Chicago. The factory was the world's leading manufacturer of luxury palace cars for the railroad industry and remained in business until 1950. Pullman's famous for a large strike in 1894. His planned community that surrounds this factory building became a focus of hard feelings by the workers when Pullman, who charged rates for rent, for food, for banking, for everything, dropped his wages but didn't change any of the prices. Today, this factory is part of the Illinois State Historical Society, but essentially it's what you see, a blank facade in a field of weeds. And it's part of the industrial heritage of the state of Illinois.
The last couple decades of the 19th century were an especially dynamic time in the industrial and labor history of Chicago. And there are still plenty of reminders around the city today of that period in our history. So, as you look at Chapter 16, remember, the 3 things that you need to keep in mind are, number 1, America's rise to industrial dominance, and that's all around the world. Number 2, the clash between ownership and labor, and the rise of the unions. And number 3, the question of the role of government in the economy. So long from Chicago, Illinois. I'll see you for Chapter 17.